Aloha. How is everybody doing? Today is January 22nd. My name is Kim Ann Curtin, the Wall Street coach. I do this live coaching almost every Wednesday. I haven't done it for a while with the holiday season, podcast guests, a whole bunch of reasons, but I'm here today and I'm really excited to be back. It's been a while. I miss this amazing community of traders that come to this almost every Wednesday to either hop into a hot seat and get some live coaching on the spot, or to just ask questions through the DMs and or on our trader voicemail. Trader voicemail's phone number, in case you ever want to leave a question for me to address, is 646-828-7736. That way you don't have to come on here, or, if you want to keep your privacy, I understand that. So be sure to leave your voicemail on that. And then before I come on each time, I listen to that voicemail and then bring your questions forward. So first, want to thank our sponsor, Opal Securities. If you guys want to learn more about Opal Securities, please send me a DM and I'll arrange an introduction. Outside, I am looking today for 2 people to take a hot seat, and that would be anybody who is looking to address place that they feel stuck in their trading. Maybe you know what's going on, maybe you're not sure, maybe you keep responding in a certain behavior that you're like, why do I keep doing this? Those kind of issues are perfect for this speed coaching. Look, there's just so much time in this free platform that I can take on big topics, but something that shows up here a lot is the fear of missing out, or the ability to take themselves out of a losing trade. So these are the topics that, of course, if they resonate with you, come on in and just raise your hand. I'll give you the link so you can come in and get some coaching. What I did want to say right at the very beginning that I'm very excited about is I'll be soon offering a private school community. School, spelled SKOOL, is a new platform that I've gotten to know recently. And I'm going to be creating this community specific for traders. A while back, I tried to launch a Discord room, and I really thought it would be the perfect hub for traders, but it just didn't work out the way I envisioned. And I think what I've realized is that traders, they don't need another chat room. They need structure, they need clarity, they need a system that gets them the results, not just conversations. And even though I had a lot of resources in there, I don't think the traders were taking themselves through the resources. So that's why I'm building something different this time. And this private school community is not just going to be a place for traders to be able to connect, but it also will give you guys access to my Trading EQ video course, which is about 2.5 hours long. It'll give you a bunch of resources that are going to help you kind of DIY, do it yourself, to get to the bottom of some of the common mistakes traders make, and some of the kind of triggers that they don't even realize are really impacting their trading. It'll give you tools to really work on this yourself. So there'll be kind of like a really reasonably priced membership. And then, of course, there'll be a more higher end for those who want to go really deep. So if this sounds of interest to you, please drop me either a DM or put in the comments here, me in all caps, ME, that's the trigger. And then I'll reach out to you and get you an early invite. Because really, this is a place, I'm opening it up quietly here because so many of you that come into this live coaching are, people that I've known for a long time. I've been doing these lives for a long time now. So I wanted to kind of give you guys access to this first. And because I want to get it right, I'm still, working on it, trying to make sure that I've got all that I want included in it. But it's not just going to be me teaching. It's really going to be a collaborative space for everyone to grow together. So I just, excited about it, and just wanted to tell everybody here to just let me know if you want more info when it is ready to go. So that is very exciting. Very excited about that. And I also, when I come into these live coaching, guys, what I come for really is to coach, to do some speed coaching. And if there's something that you really know you'd like to take, have me take on for you, please just come into this room. What I'll do right now is attach, because when people watch this through YouTube, they don't always see the items that I put into the restream. I don't think it plays on X for some reason. Come on, Elon, you got to get that fixed for me. But I'm going to just attach it. So if you're watching this on X, just go to the first comments of this particular, you'll see me live. But then underneath it, you're going to see attached is my own reply. And there is a restream link that would allow you to come in and get live coaching. Now, what I usually do until we get a volunteer or two is I take on a topic that I feel is really hopefully valuable. And what I wanted to talk to you guys about today, but again, remember, anytime you can take that restream link, you'll come into the green room, and then I'll get your camera on and we can go at it. You can bring things to this conversation like FOMO. You can bring things to this conversation like greed if you're struggling with greed. Or what's the other side of the coin of greed? You would be surprised. It's scarcity. In my experience, most times somebody is struggling with either greed or scarcity. They are two sides of the same coin. That may seem so strange to you at first, but I promise once we pull that apart, you'll see that it's basically the same issue. There are times traders have come into this conversation where they're trying to figure out how to not spend too much time on the desk, but also spend enough time, especially if in their less than 3 years as a trader. I've taken on coaching sessions here to talk about the benefits of sim trading or the benefits of being in a live trade. There are so many different aspects, but every trader that comes into these conversations, what is so remarkable is that a trader will come in and they'll say, oh, I'm embarrassed to speak to this. I'm embarrassed to admit this, Kim. I feel funny saying it out loud. And then guess what happens as soon as they do? Everybody plows into the comments or sends them a DM to say, me too. I struggle with that as well. You're not the only one. Thanks for being courageous by raising your hand, because you're speaking for my experience as well. So I just want to kind of preempt that, guys. You got to remember that no matter what you're dealing with, you are not the only one who is dealing with it. You are one of a lot of people. And the key here is to not feel like that sense of I'm the only one. Because when you go down that rabbit hole, what gets kicked up is shame. Shame is at the lowest of all the emotions. There's a beautiful chart of emotions and feelings Dr. David Hawkins put together. He's the author of a book that really changed my life called Power versus Force. Can't say enough about this book. This concept is that and just ask yourself, just the title alone, ask yourself, what do you imagine you yourself, if you had a magic wand, what would you rather have? Would you rather be somebody who acquires things with force or a person who acquires things with power? I think it's clear that having power is a much more beneficial place to be. But what I see happen a lot of times with traders, they are not in their power. They are coming from the energy of force. They're forcing trades. They're forcing their, nose into the, what, when they screw up. They're beating themselves up. They're forcing themselves to stay at the desk, to, grind it out. There is such an incredible amount of energy of force that so many traders take into their trading. And I want to encourage you to see that about yourself. If you're using force in how you trade, even the relationship traders sometimes have to the market. They're like, I'm gonna force the market to give me what I want. I mean, when we say it out loud like this, it's obviously crazy, but it happens. It takes you over often. I talk to enough traders that know that it hijacks you. That energy hijacks you. And what I want you to get is that it is the place we go to. We can't help but go to force if we are not in our power. It's just how we're built. Because if we aren't connected to our power, if we aren't connected to that sense of neutral groundedness, we're going to be flailing about like a drowning man on the ocean. I've said this many times, but I don't know if you guys know this, but lifeguards are specifically trained to go in twos. Why do you think that's the case? Anybody want to guess? You could probably just think about that for a minute and come up with the answer. Because that drowning person is likely to take one of those lifeguards down, right? But would any of us make that drowning man or woman wrong? Would we say, what a jerk, what a selfish person they are? No, everybody would be like, no, Kim, they were drowning. They were desperate for air. They're just going to hold on to anything they can so they can lift themselves up above the surface and get a hit of oxygen, right? If you guys are coming from a place of force, then I can tell you likely what's in place is the experience of drowning, the experience of not enough oxygen, the experience of being in a panic. But that person, as strong as that drowning man or woman might be in the moment, that is an energy of force as well. And it's not going to do them any good. Here's a person trying to come and save them, and they're pulling them down. And that person now, gets them the hit of oxygen, but it's not going to get them out of that situation. But we also know that when we're panicked, when we're drowning, we're not going to think straight. So the key here, guys, is I want you to start to consider, are you trading from a place of force and not just forcing trades? I'm talking about forcing a certain kind of, green days, forcing, the forcing can happen in small micro little ways, or it can happen in macro ways. You can look at your trading career. You can look at this last year. You can look at your journals. You can ask yourself, was I coming from a place of force today, or was I coming from a place of power? Now, power is a fascinating word to me because sometimes it gets sort of a bad rap, and yet power is really something that makes all of us usually feel safe. Like, wow, I'm in my power. I can count on myself. At the end of the day, guys, you are going to need to be able to count on yourself. You probably have lots of different traders you look up to. You probably have lots of gurus that you follow. That is fantastic, especially at the start. You've got to have people who can guide you. You have to have trusted teachers. You have to have people, traders, experienced traders who are going to tell you, oh, God, you got to definitely not do this. This you got to do. All of that stuff is great. And you are going to ultimately have to take 100% responsibility for your journey, for your strategy, for how you have a relationship to the market. Because just what works for Lance Bretstein, what works for Brian Lee, what works for Jack Kellogg, what works for Nate Michaud, is that going to work for you? Now, you have to ask yourself, you're going to have a whole bunch of variables that are unique to you. How much time can you give your trading? Are you a full-time trader or a part-time trader? Are you above the PDT rule? Are you below the PDT rule? Are you taking care of kids, parents, elders? Is your health in good shape? Are you having to also do other responsibilities? There are so many factors. So I want you to listen to those incredible traders. I want you to digest the wisdom they have earned with their skin, blood, sweat, and tears. And then I want you to be honest with yourself with what you can take from their learned wisdom and apply to you, because you have a unique set of circumstances, and you have to be sure that what and where you're coming from, even with your self expectations, are in this galaxy. I'm all about bodacious plans, but you've got to have them within this galaxy for you to be able to move yourself in that direction. When we ask of ourselves something that is completely beyond what is in reality or in this galaxy, we are going to experience being more demoralized than you would think. And that is a cost to your mental capital, because you're going to feel discouraged. You're going to feel demoralized. I'm going through this right now with putting this school community together. I'm having to learn a whole bunch of things that I am not privy to with regards to social media and the different ways you have to put certain things out there. And I'm like, I had no idea this has to happen, that has to happen. And it's been demoralizing to me. I'm beating myself up because I'm like, how did I not know this? How did I not know that? But that is, I have to feel those feelings. I have to process those feelings. But if I just stay stuck in that demoralization, I'm not going to be able to change. I'm not going to be able to grow. And this happens to a lot of traders. They get so caught up in what they're doing wrong, and what they didn't do right, and what they should have known, shoulda, coulda, woulda. And you guys wind up spending weeks, days, hours, months on all the bad stuff, all the mistakes, and not enough time encouraging yourself or getting a hit of oxygen. So I'm going to pause. Again, remind you guys, please come in. I put that link here in the restream, so people on YouTube should be able to see that. And of course, I'm going back to X and just make sure that that posted there too. So if anybody on X wants to have some speed coaching, please just raise your hand and come on in. Power versus Force. That's the name of the book. But even if you don't read the book, that is what I would love to suggest you guys include in your journal. I want you to ask yourself every day, how did you trade? Did you trade from the energy of force? Did you trade from the energy of power? When you're in your power, guys, you're going to be able to let a losing trade go, because your sense of self-worth isn't attached to it. The reason traders don't cut their losses is because they still have their sense of self-esteem, sense of self-identity hooked to being right. Being right, if that is really critically important to you, then here is a crazy recommendation. You have to first unhook yourself from being right. Because if right now your sense of, you know, uh, I'm a success is based on your being right all the time, you are going to lose so much money as a trader. So I would say pause your trading, get that unhooked. It's like a train caboose on the trades you're making and drawing you back, slowing you down. The reason why traders will keep with a trade that they know they should get out of is because that feeling of shame, of making a mistake, of not being, right about something is so difficult to feel that you would rather lose your capital. Isn't that, it's crazy when you hear me say it like that, but that is exactly what's going on. When there are feelings of shame, when we lose, when we make a mistake, when we're wrong, there is no wonder we are going to kick that can down the curb as long as possible. Because who wants to feel shame? Nobody. It's not a good feeling, guys. And yet, until that gets unhooked, I don't know if you guys ever saw this with dry cleaners. New York City, I don't have any dry cleaner here on the big island of Hawaii. God help me. It's really hard. I know, like crying in my soup over here. But in New York City, I had a dry cleaner right downstairs. And if I got a shirt, especially men's shirts, on cardboard that's inside, there's like two pieces of cardboard glued together, right? If it moved a certain way, you could see, oh, these are two pieces of cardboard sealed together with glue. That is what I see so frequently with traders. Their sense of identity, their sense of self-esteem is glued to being right, as if you are only worthy if you're right. That is going to be the biggest detriment. I don't care if you are a brand new baby trader or you are an 8-figure, 9-figure trader. I'm talking about this is going to affect you no matter where you are in the journey. And you got to get really curious, guys. Not so much about where does this come from. That is another conversation. But you've got to at least, at a simple start, realize, wow, I never really noticed how much my sense of worthiness is attached to being right. If you can just simply notice that, Rick Carson, big friend of my podcast, Rick Carson came on. He's the author of Taming Your Gremlin. He talks all the time about simply noticing. If you walk away with anything here today, guys, walk away with that. Walk away with that realization that you currently might have your sense of self-esteem, sense of worthiness tied up in being right. And if you can get that awareness to be present as you trade every day, you're going to see it over and over and over again. I constantly have this quote I use from Peter Brandt. It's one of my favorite quotes out there, where he says there's a difference between a losing trade and a bad trade. That is what ultimately you want to be clear on. But the only way you're going to be able to see that distinction is if the shame is faced. If you start to notice that sense of self-esteem is very tied up with being right, because being wrong is a huge part of trading. So you're going to have to address this sooner or later. I would say do it sooner so you don't lose capital. So I'm going to pause. I don't see anybody volunteering for the speed coaching. Are you guys afraid? Do you think I bite? What do you think? Why would you guys not come in for free speed coaching? It is going to be the best 10 minutes you guys ever have especially if you want to see your trading improve. So I hope you come in. I mean, really, guys, it's kind of crazy, right? That I'm here ready to do it as 85 people in total across the platform, and nobody's saying, I'm going to go ahead, Kim. I'm going to get some coaching. That's what this is for. Obviously, I can wax on about a lot of different issues that I see traders struggle with, but I think it's always more powerful when there's somebody getting the coaching. So hopefully that'll be one of you soon, and you'll take that button and click it and come on in. Okay, so back to my construct today. I want you guys to see if you can check this every day in your journal. When you're writing down the recap of the day, I want you to ask yourself, did I come from power today in my trading account? Was I coming from a place of force? And the other thing I want to say about that concept of power versus force is that force is at some point going to lose energy. When things are forced, when we are forcing not just other people, but even ourselves, it is going to hit a wall at some point. And this is what happens sometimes when traders blow themselves up. This is what happens sometimes when traders just feel kind of burnt out. This happens sometimes even to experienced traders who don't get off their desk by 12:30, 1 o'clock, and they know they should, and yet they stay. It's because they're still in the energy of force. And all I want you guys to be aware of is consciously be observing yourself as that day unfolds. Consciously be noticing what happens as the day proceeds. Did you start out from a place of power? And did you, over the course of the morning, find yourself moving into force because you had a couple of bad trades, or because things didn't go the way you thought, or because things were more volatile than you were prepared for, right? There's a lot of volatility now, and it's probably going to be like that for the next 4 years. So you cannot come from a place of force. You're going to need to go the distance, right? If you guys want to extract as much as possible from the chaotic 4 years we're all buckled up in for, you better get yourself dialed into power and not force, because the force is it's gonna run out of gas at some point. And the key here is, if you're coming from a place of power, you don't run out of gas. It is a self-sustaining place, but you have to be very honest with yourself. And that is something too, just by way of when I work with one-on-one clients, that is something that shows up pretty early on. There's a very heartfelt conversation about how this is going to ask a lot of you. Coaching asks a lot of you, not because coaching itself is asking a lot of you, but it's reflecting back. It's giving you a mirror to force you to be with some hard truths about yourself. Now, again, that feels hard at first, especially if you have your sense of identity connected to this place of perfection or something other human like. Traders sometimes can be the hardest I've ever seen on themselves across all the cohorts. And I've worked with C-suite level executives, and those guys are pretty hard on themselves too. But traders are like notoriously hard on themselves. I am not saying you don't have to work hard. I am not saying you do not have a hell of a ride ahead of you, but to exasperate what's already one of the most challenging, difficult, positions out there, beating yourself up, guys, that is not going to help you go the distance. Yes, you're going to have to be disciplined. Yes, you're going to have to do a lot of work, but to beat yourself up along the way, it is just going to undermine where you want to get to. So see if maybe just even putting those two words in front of yourself every day, power versus force. Where am I coming from right now in my trading? What is informing the energy of which I am being influenced with this? Is it possible that I'm coming from force? And if so, you know there's going to be a cost. It's either going to happen in your trading account or it's going to happen to you on a physiological, emotional level. And that is when you can find yourself suddenly, inexplicably in the midst of a losing streak because the force keeps trying to operate and get you out of that losing cycle. But that is like, and I've talked about this before, did you guys ever see that Chinese finger trap? It's a toy we used to have when we were kids. And the harder you pulled, the more trapped you became. It was in the relaxing, in the noticing that gave you your power. But the force, which is what most of us did when we first get the toy, we're like, oh my God, I can't get my fingers out. And we try harder. That's what I see so many traders do. They just try harder, and try to force themselves into this, into that, whatever the issue is. I'm going to make the decision, Kim, and I'm just going to do it. And I'm just like, that is your intellect talking as if that is what's driving your vehicle. It isn't what's driving your vehicle, guys. That is just that tip of the iceberg up there. There is all of the iceberg underwater. That is your unconscious that is driving you all the time, driving me, driving all of us. That is how we operate. And until we're willing to stop, pause, open the hood of the vehicle and take a look around, right? The other day, I got an oil change at a new mechanic that I really loved. I was so excited for. And, just 5 days later, I live on the top of this huge mountain. So it's like crazy, go up 1,000 or 1,500 feet above. It's a 3,500 feet above sea level. So it's a climb, it's all the way up. And I got to the top of the hill and I'm like smelling oil. I'm like, what the hell is that? What's that burning smell? I don't know. And my car is pretty new. It's, maybe a couple of years old. So I'm like, holy crap, what's going on? Now, I forgot about it. It was late at night when I came back. Late at night for us here in Hawaii. 9:00 dinner is late at night. I used to go to dinner at 9:00 at night in New York City, but now I go to bed at like 10:00 here. Anyway, I was tired. I got home and I was like, what is that smell? But I was too tired. I was like, I wasn't sure it was my car. I didn't know what it was. Anyway, I go to sleep. And then I go to swimming, which is like 5:30 in the morning. Again, I'm like not fully awake. I'm like, and then I smell the smell again. I'm like, oh my God, there's something going on. Now, again, it's really like a brand new car. And yet I just went to this mechanic. So I'm like, oh my God, what happened? What did they do? What did they do wrong? Whatever. So what do? Of course, I drive straight to the mechanic. I try to call it. I'm like, I just got to go. And they noticed just by chance this filter or whatever the hell it is, it was defective. So oil was coming out of my engine. And I don't understand the mechanics of it, but I could see it. And he was like, I've never seen this before. It's just a defective filter, defective part. He's like, I'm so sorry. He's like, we're going to change it right now and fix it and take care of it. Of course, there was no charge. They handled it just like that. But what's the moral of this story? The moral of this story is I forgot about it the first time, right? Okay, the second time I paid attention. I could have ignored it, guys. I could have said, you know what? I don't want to deal with this now. I got to do this. I got to do that. I just don't want to deal with this. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to have to go spend money on it. I don't want this, that, the other thing. I could have said 4 or 5 different excuses to kick that can down the curb, right? That, I promise, is likely what some of you already are doing when it comes to your trading. There is some kind of a burning oil smell, and it's possible you don't want to deal with it. So you are ignoring it and you are just hoping it's going to go away. But guys, it isn't going to go away. Down deep in your soul, you know you're going to have to be with this sooner or later. And all I want to say to you is the sooner you're with it, you will save your capital, you will save your heart, you will save yourself from so much cost. If I had not gotten that done with the car, it could have turned into a whole big experience, could have screwed up my transmission, could have screwed up the car. This really nice, very well-maintained car, like that, it would have been over in a very short amount of time. That is what happens when we don't want to be with what's hard to be with. Is it a pain in the neck? Yes. Is it going to take up time? Yes. Does it mean you're going to have to probably dial back your trading so you can start to pay attention to your journals and to simply notice how you keep reacting instead of responding? Yes. But it is worth it in the end. It is an investment. And if you can't stop and you find yourself really struggling with that, then you got to recognize, oh, look at that. I'm in the middle of force. I am not coming from a place of power. For you to go the distance, for you to secure what you want to secure from your trading, no matter how small your goals are or large, they are completely dependent on you being in your power. So I'm going to pause, see, does anybody have any questions? Does anybody have any topic that you want me to take on? If you don't, I would love for you to come in and get some coaching, but if you're not going to come in for coaching, then feel free to send me a DM on X, or you can put your comments right here in wherever this is showing for you. Maybe it's showing for you, have it on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, or else YouTube, of course. Facebook, I think maybe Facebook. I don't know if my Facebook is working. I might have to restart my whole Facebook. I don't know what's going on there. It's been acting really weird. All right, so I'm not seeing any questions. 119 people. Guys, if anybody here wants to have speed coaching, take that Restream link that I put here in the right on YouTube. You can see it right there. And if you're on X watching or Instagram, you can certainly come in there as well. But you just have to, raise your hand and take that link, and then you can come in to get the coaching. You'll come into what is like a green room, and then I'll click enter, and you can come right in, and then we can have at it. So the heart of today's topic was for you to just start to be present to, are you coming from a place of power? Are you coming from a place of force? And of course, at the end of the day, for you to be able to go the distance, you're going to want to come from a place of power. And you want to get very curious about what is keeping you from a place of power. Often, in my experience, it is usually a collection of inner critics, inner gremlins, inner critics that are constantly raining on your parade. A lot of times traders will come into the coaching and they'll be like, I just, first, obviously it gets addressed that there are these inner critics. I often use with first-time clients my assessment. I call it the Trader Positioning Index, which allows us really an X-ray of what's happening for a trader on their work side and on their self side. It allows me and the trader not to guess at how loud the inner critic is, but to measure just how compromised that inner critic is. It helps us also understand where somebody's at with regards to mental clutter. It also measures where a person's sense of self-esteem is. Is it undervalued? Is it overvalued? We're able to measure on that as well, how well you follow directions, how conflict avoidant you are. We're able to see your motivation. Are you under-motivated right now or overly motivated? All of these dials, so to speak, there's a ideal kind of range. And when a trader is outside of that range, then I know, and they know shortly thereafter getting the results, that it's like holes in their gas tank losing gasoline. Their ability to go the distance is going to be completely hindered by these scores that otherwise they wouldn't even have known are leaking out the very gasoline that's going to take them the distance. That is part of why I use that assessment and find it to be so powerful, because in an instant we can take a look of where you're being held back, where you're being hindered, and where are you in a place of strength. And that becomes the place that you can focus on. One of the techniques I learned 20 years ago was something called appreciative inquiry. And this is a management consulting coaching technique where we would go into organizations and look at what worked. What did the people, the teams, the infrastructure, what worked well? When you put a focus on what works well, the things that don't work well start to dissipate. And this is also something I would strongly recommend to any trader. When was the last time you looked through your journals and identified all the places you do well? There was one trader recently that I talked to who went through an entire year and saw that there was so many trades that were taken way beyond what were needed. And that forced him, which God bless him for being willing enough to look at that hard truth, that his ability, if he could have just taken those winning trades and not all that other, he would first of all have had so much more time for himself, and he also would have had more profit. So this is part of what you guys want to do. You want to start to find, what do you do well? What do you do that's easy? What do you do that works? And turn the volume up on that. I think it's very easy for traders to focus on what they don't do well, what they're lousy at. Like if I had 128 of you are here now, if I asked, and you can right now, I'd love to see your comments. In a heartbeat, I can say, what do you guys do wrong? Just give me one word over trade, FOMO. Just put one word in the comments right now, what you don't do well. Just one thing you do lousy at. I bet it would take you all 2 seconds to be like, FOMO, greed, not cutting loss quick enough. Like in a split second, everybody here undoubtedly knows what they are doing wrong. But if I asked you, what are you doing well? Where do you always take the perfect trade? I bet that is not as accessible to you. That is the predisposition we always have towards what we're doing wrong. We have a tendency to focus on what's wrong. What haven't we done? What's off with how we're operating? And that's how our brains are built. Nothing wrong with that. And you can start to develop and get into a habit of also noticing, what do you do well? When appreciative inquiry is used, what's so fascinating to me is when the volume gets turned up on what you do well, the stuff that you don't do well just starts to fall by the wayside. Talk about power. That is just the evidence again, guys, that you want to come from the energy of power, not the energy of force, because it's like swimming upstream. You want to go with the flow. You want to get into a flow state. We all heard about this thanks to Csikszentmihalyi, whose book is called Flow. He talks at length about the great artists, the great musicians, the greatest at what they do are the people who are in a flow state. If you are currently trading and you are not in a flow state, what can I tell you? I don't think you should be trading, because if you are coming with this force, be it the self-esteem is collapsed with whether you have a green day or not. If you're coming from a place of have to, must, should energy, that is all the energy of force. And it doesn't work. This is what is so fascinating to me. It's like, if it has never worked for you before, and I'm going to presume most people here are not traders that just started 5 minutes ago, what makes you think tomorrow it's going to be different? And yet, so many traders repeat. And that's usually when they come to coaching. They're so fed up. They're just like, Kim, I can't take it anymore. I get it. I'm not making fun of that. Thank God they come then. But what is stopping you guys from addressing this before you hit the wall? Like, I don't know if you've ever played pinball. I'm probably aging myself, but the pinball machine, if you jacked it around too hard, would stop. It would go on tilt, and you would have to wait, whatever it was, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, for the whole machine to cool down. And that was a brilliant technique the pinball machine creators made, because you're forced to calm down. You can't play pinball. If only there was a tilt that was on all of your training setups, where the market was like, you know what? You have to stop. We're going to shut it down for just a minute for you to get yourself together. That would probably save billions of dollars. But heartfelt, I want you to think about, okay, do I need some rewiring? Am I coming from force most of the time? Am I coming from a place of have to, must, should? The only way you can get out from underneath that is by becoming a neutral observer of yourself. You are going to need to start to notice how you get triggered, what triggers you, not because you're going to be able to solve it in that moment, but that at least interrupts you being trapped into behavior that's costly. Even if you just simply notice, wow, I'm really trying to force this trade, that gives you a little bit of space between operating like that and being able to potentially change course. So just start slow with this place of neutral observation of yourself. One of the TV detectives that was my favorite growing up, which also goes way back, is a detective called Columbo. This was I was just called Columbo. It's probably out there on YouTube someplace. But part of what was so fascinating about this detective, this show is interesting because they let the viewer know who the murderer was at the start of the series. And then you watch Columbo kind of unpack it. But the quirkiness about Columbo was so fascinating because he always had a very wrinkled raincoat. His hair was always kind of askew. He often had a cigar. I think his face, one side of his face was a little off. Like, he was a quirky character that kind of came across like a dumb blonde, right? He came across like, as if he didn't remember, oh, my wife, I'm late for my wife. Like, he presents as somebody who's not a threat. He presents as a dum-dum. He presents as forgetful and stupid and not really got it together. And yet, he was a genius. And I think that is such a great metaphor for what I see often happen with traders with their relationship to their accounts. They are coming in with all of the beliefs or the behaviors or the temperament of what helped them perhaps find success elsewhere, right? If you're in the corporate world, if you're an entrepreneur running a company, if you're coming from academia, if you're coming from any of the standard places, you're going to usually find people who are coming from having to be right, having to be perfect, having to plow through lots of work and made their way up the ladder. They are going to usually look the part, dress the part, have a certain kind of vibe about them. And they come into trading, and all of that doesn't do them any good. And I have to tell you, that can be a bit of a shock to their system, because everything that has helped them create their success thus far does do them any good. In fact, more than not doing them any good, it sabotages them and as a trader. And the traders that are perhaps not coming from that corporate background, not coming from running a company, not coming from academia, will thrive. Whereas these people who seemingly look like, according to all the boxes and checklists our world gives us, should be able to transfer those skills quickly into trading. And they find out very surprisingly that it doesn't. And that can be very confusing to them. But what I'm trying to say is, because the force energy that works in a lot of different places, like the corporate world, like academia, doesn't work in trading. So you have to really be honest with yourself when you come into this field. Are you ready to leave at the gate a lot of the different accolades or kind of check marks that you previously used to measure yourself by? That is part of why I say over and over again, the market is the best school of enlightenment you're ever going to find, because all the places where you could posture before and put up a good front is going to just dissolve like a bouillon cube in a hot boiling pot of water. It's going to be gone like that as soon as you start to trade. You're going to be forced to be with the relationship you have with yourself. And if the relationship you have with yourself is compromised, is not strong, is somehow been, not encouraged in a healthy way, then all of that shit is going to be revealed quickly as a trader. And that is a good thing, because I promise you guys, if you didn't step into trading, there's very few places that are going to force you to have to reconcile with all of that misinformation that's guiding all of your choices. So it's like, what are you going to do? You're going to deny what the market is trying to tell you, or you're going to say, wow, the market is trying to teach me something. I am going to finally stop dancing and moving and working, and I'm going to pause and take a hard look at what's showing up, not with judgment, but with curiosity. And that was part of what Columbo, that detective, always did really well. He would ask such unexpected questions because he was curious. He came from a place of continuous curiosity. What takes us out of curiosity? Judgment. And every time you guys step into judgment about yourself, about the market, about another trader, you take yourself out of the stream of learning, of education, of transformation. You want to do whatever you can to get yourself into neutral observation, neutral curiosity, because that is a place where you will be able to have aha after aha after aha. And it moves you into eventually having what is known as a flow state. And that is the most powerful place when you are coming from a flow state. And that is ultimately what I want for all of you. I want you to get into that flow state, but you're going to have to get rid of the hindrances that are keeping you from that flow state right now. And I don't want you to make yourself wrong for it. I just want you to at least admit to yourself if you're not in a flow state. And if you're not, you got to ask yourself, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to just ignore it? I hope not, because the costs just compound, guys. The costs just compound. And at the end of the day, I sort of feel like, wow, if you're brave enough to take this, the most competitive game in the world, on that never ends up against the smartest people in the world, then it's possible you are ready for transformation. You wouldn't be here if not. And this is the other thing, too, I just want to say, change your relationship to that which is forced upon you by the market, to this, the market is happening for me, not against you. The market isn't happening to you. So many traders get kind of caught up, like it did this and it did that, as if it's out to get you. The market is here trying to raise up on a silver platter with your losses, with the hard to be with truths, so that you can do something about them. But instead, a lot of traders shut down and take it personally and start to get defensive and start to make excuses to themselves, never mind me or anybody else. It's less worrisome that you are going to lie to somebody else. It's more worrisome that you're going to lie to yourself, because you always know it when you're lying to yourself down deep inside. You can come up with a whole bunch of reasons and excuses, but the inside, our true self, knows we're making up a song and a dance. So the key here is like, what is that relationship that you have with yourself? And this is a big problem too. Very few traders even have a relationship with themselves. They have a relationship with their inner critic, not with their true self. And that too is sabotaging them, because they can't even hear their own voice above the cacophony of noise that inner critics with an S are constantly yelling into our ears. And it's costing you. And I don't want that cost to be there. There's enough cost in trading. You don't need extra costs. So I'm going to wrap it up. I can't believe out of 150 people, we don't have anybody that wants some speed coaching. Maybe next time. What I was going to say. So that's my suggestion. You put up power versus force. You measure it every day. Did I trade today from an energy of power? Did I trade today from a place of forcing it? Are you coming into the day with the energy of power? Are you coming into your trading day with the energy of force? There's volatility in the market right now, as we talked about, and it likely will be for quite a while. It could be that there are days you're not cut out for it. Don't make yourself wrong for it. Just be honest. If you've had crappy sleep, or you've got a hangover, or you spent the night taking care of a loved one and you didn't sleep and you haven't hydrated, and let the day go. There'll be another day tomorrow. Keep in mind that you need to take care of your basics for you to be able to be in your trading that day in a way that's going to not cost you. Because we all know it is much better for you to just skip your trading that day than to force it if you aren't in the headspace for it. So I'm going to pause there. I'm not seeing any questions come in. I'm so surprised at that. And again, remember, if you guys are interested in learning more about the school platform, send me a DM or a comment that says me, capital M, capital E. And when that information's ready, I'll get it off to you. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Very excited to be back and doing these live coaching. Hopefully we'll get some volunteers for next Wednesday. I'm double checking here quickly to make sure next week is happening. It is. I just don't know what time it is happening next week. So, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. All right. I'll put that announcement out there. Any last questions before I go? Anybody want me to tackle one particular issue, either in person or just with the message? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Well, not forever, just for another week. Okay. All right, guys, it was great to be here, and I'm so glad to be back. I missed all of you guys. You guys are just such a steady Eddie crew, and I really hope these are valuable. And keep in mind, too, even if it isn't for today's session, you can always go into my DMs. You can go into the Trader voicemail and leave a message there. If there's a topic you want me to address and you don't want to reveal your identity, you can always go into the Trader voicemail, leave that voicemail message there. That phone number is 646-828-7736. All it asks you for is what the topic is that you want me to address in one of these lives. You don't have to leave your name. And then I will just play that message on the next live and coach you based on what you said. So hopefully that will work for you guys. And I will see you next Wednesday. The time to be decided, but I'll put that announcement up soon. I'm just double checking that nobody just now came into the room. I don't think so. So I think we're good to go. All right, guys, have a good week. Be careful out there. And remember, come from your power, not from force. All right.